The calabash shattered against the children's skin, and in that single frozen moment, Iphioma knew that the 12 years of fear, the sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, all of it had been for nothing. The promise she made with the water goddess had been broken, and now she must watch the demon take all of her children away. But to understand how a mother could watch her 7 children walk into a river and disappear forever, we must go back to the beginning. To the night when desperation made a woman agree to terms she didn't fully understand. Iphioma had been married to Chief Okonkwo for 12 years, and in those 12 years, her womb had remained as empty as a dry well in Harmattan. 12 years of prayers. 12 years of herbs from every herbalist between Badagry and Cotonou. 12 years of watching her co-wife Adana swell with child after child while she remained flat, barren, worthless. The mockery was relentless and surgical in its cruelty. Iphioma, have you tried standing on your head after lying with the chief? I hear it helps the seed settle, one market woman said loudly enough for everyone to hear, then dissolved into laughter with her friends. At family gatherings, Chief Okonkwo's mother didn't even pretend anymore. Adana, bring your children to greet me. At least one womb in this compound is functioning as God intended. Iphioma would smile through it all, the perfect smile she had practiced in the mirror until it no longer hurt her face to hold. But inside, something was breaking piece by piece, day by day. The breaking point came on a Wednesday evening during Adana's 5th child's naming ceremony. The entire village had gathered. The drums were loud, the palm wine flowed freely, and Chief Okonkwo held his newest son high in the air with pride radiating from every pore. Iphioma sat in the corner of the compound, watching. She had always present herself but never participating in the joy that seemed to flow around her but never through her. Chief Okonkwo's younger brother, already drunk, approached her with the confidence of someone who no longer cared about consequences. Sister Iphioma, why are you just sitting there? Come and dance. Oh wait, he laughed, loud and ugly. What are you celebrating? Nothing from your side of the compound, right? The compound went quiet. Enough for everyone to hear. Enough for the humiliation to be complete and public. Iphioma stood up slowly, that practiced smile still on her face, and walked out of the compound. Nobody followed her. Nobody seemed to care. She walked for hours, through the village paths she knew by heart, past the market that was closing for the night, past the church where she had prayed until her knees were scarred. She walked until she found herself at the edge of the forbidden river, the one the village priestess had warned everyone to stay away from after dark. Ocean lives in that river, the priestess had said during a village meeting months ago, her old eyes serious. And Ocean is not like the church god who forgives easily. She answers prayers, yes. But her gifts come with prices that most people cannot afford to pay. Stay away from that river at night. Iphioma stood at the edge of the water, looking at her reflection in the moonlight. She looked older than 32. Grief ages a person faster than time ever could. I don't care about prices anymore, she whispered to her reflection. I'll pay anything. Anything. She didn't know if she was praying or simply talking to herself. But she waded into the water up to her knees, her wrapper soaking, her body trembling, not from cold, but from the particular desperation of someone who has reached the absolute end of themselves. Ocean, she called out, her voice cracking. If you're real, if you're there, I'm calling you. I need help. I need children. I'll do anything, I'll pay anything, just please. Her voice broke completely. Please help me. The water around her began to glow. Softly at first, like moonlight concentrated, then brighter, until the entire river was luminous. Iphioma gasped and tried to move backward, but her legs wouldn't obey. The water held her in place with a gentleness that was somehow more terrifying than force would have been. A woman rose from the river. She was the most beautiful thing Iphioma had ever seen, and the most terrifying. Her skin was the color of river stones after rain, her hair moved like water itself even though there was no wind, and her eyes were ancient, holding the weight of 1,000 answered prayers and 1,000 collected debts. You called me with blood tears, Ocean said, her voice melodic but carrying an edge that made Iphioma's bones cold. "I heard you from the bottom of the river where I sleep. What do you want, desperate woman?" Iphioma's mouth was dry, but the words came anyway, pushed out by 12 years of accumulated pain. "Children. I want children. I want so many children that every person who has mocked me will choke on their words. I want to be called Mama with respect. I want my husband to look at me the way he looks at Adana. I want—" She stopped because Ocean was smiling, and the smile was not comforting. "You want to silence mockery," Ocean said softly. "You don't want children to love, Iphioma. You want children to prove a point. I want both. I'll love them, I swear I will." "Swearing is easy when you're desperate." Ocean moved closer, and Iphioma could see that the goddess's eyes were not quite human. They shifted like water, reflecting things that weren't there. "I will give you what you're asking for. 7 children. 7 strong, healthy, beautiful children. Enough to make you the most celebrated woman in this village." Hope exploded in Iphioma's chest so violently she thought she might faint. "Thank you. Thank you, goddess. I'll bring offerings, but they come with a condition." Ocean's voice cut through Iphioma's gratitude like a knife through silk. "These children will be born of my water. They will carry my essence in their blood. And because of this, water must never touch them after they leave your womb. Not rainwater. Not bathwater. Not river water. Not even their own tears if they can help it. Nothing. If water touches their skin after birth, they return to me immediately. Forever. Do you understand?" Iphioma's heart stuttered. "Never? They can never. How will I bathe them? How will they?" "That is not my concern. That is yours. You asked for children. I'm giving you children. But they belong to the river first and to you second. Break the covenant and I collect what's mine." Ocean leaned in close, her breath cold on Iphioma's face. "Do you accept these terms, desperate woman?" Iphioma should have said no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming to refuse, to walk away, to accept her barrenness with dignity rather than bind herself to an impossible covenant. But desperation is louder than wisdom. And shame is stronger than sense. "I accept," Iphioma whispered. "Then it is done." Ocean touched Iphioma's stomach with one finger, and Iphioma felt something shift inside her, something fundamental and irreversible. "The river always collects its debts, Iphioma. Remember that." The goddess sank back into the water, and the light faded, and Iphioma stood alone in the dark river with her soaked wrapper and her new burden. She walked home in a daze, barely feeling her feet on the path. When she reached the compound, everyone was still celebrating Adana's baby. Nobody had noticed she was gone. She went to her room, changed her wrapper, and lay down. And that night, for the first time in 12 years, she felt life quicken inside her womb. 9 months later, Iphioma gave birth to triplets. 3 boys, all of them perfect, all of them screaming with the kind of robust health that made the midwives exchange glances of amazement. "I've delivered hundreds of babies," the head midwife said, wiping her hands. "But I've never seen triplets this strong. This is a miracle, Iphioma. A true miracle." Iphioma smiled, holding her sons against her chest, feeling their warmth, their weight, their reality. But underneath the joy was a cold knowledge that never left her. These children could never touch water. The first time she tried to bathe them, she stood over the basin of water for 15 minutes, paralyzed with fear. Finally, she poured it out and reached for palm oil instead, mixing it with herbs the way her grandmother had taught her. She rubbed the oil into their skin, cleaning them without a single drop of water. The midwife watched, confused. "Sister Iphioma, why are you using oil? Water is better for their skin." "No water," Iphioma said sharply. "They have sensitive skin. Only oil." The midwife frowned but said nothing. Village women had their superstitions. Who was she to argue? Chief Okonkwo was transformed. The man who had barely acknowledged Ifeoma for years now strutted around the village like a peacock, announcing his 3 new sons to anyone who would listen. He threw a naming ceremony so elaborate that people came from 3 villages away. He slaughtered 2 cows, bought enough palm wine to flood the compound, and carried each of his sons on his shoulders while the drummers played. Adana watched from her side of the compound, her face a careful mask, but her eyes told a different story. For the first time in her marriage, she was no longer the favorite. She was no longer the only one who mattered. 2 years later, Ifeoma gave birth to twin girls. 2 years after that, 2 more children, a boy and a girl. 7 children in 6 years. The village called her the Blessed One. Women came to touch her wrapper, hoping her fertility would transfer to them. The same people who had mocked her now bowed when she passed. But blessing and burden are sometimes the same thing, wearing different clothes. Ifeoma's life became an endless cycle of vigilance. She bathed all 7 children exclusively with palm oil mixed with crushed herbs and prayer water that had been blessed, but never touched their skin directly. She positioned her room to face east so she could see the rain clouds coming, and would have time to lock all the children inside before the first drops fell. During the rainy season, her children lived like prisoners. While other children ran outside laughing, dancing in the rain with their mouths open to catch the drops, Ifeoma's 7 sat inside, watching through the windows with growing resentment. "Mama, why can't we play in the rain?" her oldest son Chukwemeka asked when he was 7 years old. "All the other children do it." "Because you're special," Ifeoma said, her voice tight. "The rain is not good for your skin. But we drink water every day. We're not melting. Drinking is different from touching. Please, Chukwemeka. Don't ask me again." But children ask. It's in their nature. And as they grew older, the questions became harder to deflect. The village began to notice the strangeness too. At first they attributed it to Ifeoma's overprotective nature. But then they started seeing other things. The way the children's skin seemed to shimmer slightly in certain light, like sun on water. The way they never seemed to sweat, even in the worst heat. The way their eyes sometimes reflected things that weren't there. "Those children are not normal," old Mom Nkechi whispered to her friends at the market. "Have you noticed? They never get dirty like normal children. It's like mud and dust slide right off them." "Maybe it's the oil their mother uses," another woman suggested. "No oil does what that oil does. There's something else. Something we don't understand." The whispers grew louder, more frequent. But Chief Okonkwo, drunk on the pride of having 7 healthy children, dismissed all concerns. "People are jealous," he announced. "That's all this is. Jealousy." Adana watched Ifeoma for 6 years now, studying her routines, her fears, her strange rituals. She had watched the way Ifeoma's face went pale whenever dark clouds gathered. She had noticed how the children were never allowed near the river during festivals. She had seen the terror in Ifeoma's eyes whenever someone suggested the family take a trip to the beach. Something was being hidden. And Adana was determined to find out what. She went to the village priestess one evening, bringing a bottle of kai and sitting down with the deliberate patience of someone who knew how to extract information from drunk old women. "Mama," Adana said, pouring a generous cup. "Tell me about Ifeoma's children. People say strange things about them." The priestess drank deeply, her eyes already glazing. "Strange. Everything about those children is strange. But that's what happens when you make deals with Ocean." Adana's heart quickened. "Ocean? The river goddess. Who else?" The old woman poured herself another cup. "Ifeoma went to the Forbidden River 12 years ago. Barren women always do when they get desperate enough. Ocean gave her what she wanted. 7 children. But Ocean's children always come with conditions." "What condition?" The priestess leaned in close, her breath hot with alcohol. Water. They can't touch water. They're river spirits wearing human skin. One drop of water on their bodies, and they return to where they came from. Back to ocean. Forever. Adana sat very still, processing this information, feeling something dark and powerful unfold in her chest. One drop of water. One drop. That's why Iphioma guards them like a mad woman. She knows what will happen if the covenant is broken. Adana finished her drink slowly, thanked the priestess, and walked home through the dark village paths. By the time she reached the compound, she had made her decision. If those children disappeared, her own children would once again be Chief Okonkwo's primary heirs. The compound would return to the way it was before Iphioma's impossible miracle. And all it would take was water. Simple water. The annual river festival was 3 weeks away. Meanwhile, Chukwuemeka, now 10 years old, was reaching his breaking point. The other boys his age had started calling him, and his siblings, the oil children, mocking them for always smelling like palm oil, for never swimming, for being locked inside whenever it rained. Your mother treats you like you're made of sugar, his friend Obiora taunted. Like you'll melt if water touches you. Chukwuemeka went home that day angry in a way he'd never been before. He found his mother in the kitchen, preparing their evening meal. "Mama, I'm tired," he said, his young voice hard. "I'm tired of being different. I'm tired of the other children laughing at us. I'm tired of being locked inside like we're cursed." Iphioma's hands stilled over the pot. "You're not cursed, my son." "Then why? Why can't we do normal things? Why can't we swim in the river like everyone else? Why do you look at rain clouds like they're coming to kill us?" His voice rose. "What are you hiding from us?" "I'm protecting you." "From what?" "From water." "That makes no sense, Mama. Water doesn't hurt people. It will hurt you." The words burst out of her before she could stop them. "It will take you from me. All of you. You don't understand what I had to do to have you, what I promised, She stopped, realizing she'd said too much. Chukwuemeka stared at his mother, seeing real fear in her eyes for the first time. "What did you promise, Mama? What did you do?" But Iphioma just shook her head and turned back to her cooking, her hands trembling so badly she could barely hold the spoon. That night, Chukwuemeka gathered his siblings in the oldest girl's room and told them what he'd learned. "Mama made some kind of deal. Something about us and water. Something she's afraid of." His sister Adiz, 8 years old and too smart for her own good, spoke quietly. "I've always felt different. Haven't you? Like we're not completely here. Like part of us is somewhere else." The youngest ones didn't understand. But the older four exchanged glances that said they felt it too. That strange pull whenever they were near the river. That feeling of recognition when they heard water moving. Like something was calling them home to a home they'd never known. "The festival is coming," Chukwuemeka said. "Mama will try to keep us home again. But I'm not staying home this year. I'm tired of being afraid of things I don't understand." The seeds of rebellion were planted. And 3 weeks later, they would bloom into tragedy. The morning of the river festival arrived with drums that started before sunrise, their rhythm calling every soul in the village to come and honor Ashen. The air smelled of roasted corn and incense, and children ran through the compound already dressed in their best wrappers, excited for the dancing and feasting that would last until nightfall. Iphioma had been awake since midnight, her stomach twisted with dread. Every year it was the same battle. Every year she found a way to keep her children away from the river. Fake illnesses. Sudden family emergencies. Convenient trips to visit relatives. But the excuses were running thin, and this year, Chief Okonkwo had made his position clear. "They are coming to the festival," he told her the night before, his voice final. "All of them. I'm tired of making excuses to the village about why my children never attend. People are starting to talk, Ifioma. They're saying you're raising them like they're too good for our traditions. It ends this year. Please, Ifioma begged. Just one more year. They're still young. The oldest is 10. When I was 10, I was already helping my father fish. Enough of this madness. He stood up, his patience exhausted. Dress them properly. We leave at noon. All of us. As a family. Like normal people. Now, as noon approached, Ifioma dressed her 7 children with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She tied each wrapper with extra care, as if the tightness of the knots could somehow protect them. She braided each daughter's hair with prayers woven between the plaits. She held each son's face and looked into their eyes, memorizing them, just in case. "Mama, you're scaring us," Adiz said softly. "Why are you looking at us like that?" I'm just so proud of you. All of you." Ifioma's voice cracked. "Promise me something. At the festival, stay close to me. Don't go near the water. Don't touch anything anyone gives you without asking me first. Promise me." The children exchanged glances but nodded. Even Chukwamika, still angry from their conversation weeks ago, could see genuine terror in his mother's eyes and felt his rebellion soften slightly. The compound was chaos. Dozens of family members, friends, and neighbors gathered, all dressed in their festival best. Adana emerged from her side of the compound with her 5 children, all of them already wearing the special white chalk marks that signified they would be dancing for the goddess. She saw Ifioma's 7 and smiled. "Sister Ifioma," Adana called out sweetly. "How wonderful that your children are finally joining us this year. The goddess will be so pleased." Ifioma felt ice slide down her spine at those words but forced a smile. "Yes. The goddess." They walked as a village to the sacred river, drums leading the way, voices raised in songs that had been sung for generations. The river sparkled in the afternoon sun, beautiful and inviting. Children were already splashing at its edges, laughing, their parents watching with indulgent smiles. Ifioma positioned herself between her children and the water, a human barrier, her eyes darting everywhere at once. Chief Okonkwo stood with the other chiefs, receiving blessings from the priestess, completely at ease. Adana watched Ifioma's frantic vigilance and felt her plan solidify. She had prepared everything carefully. The calabash of sacred river water, blessed by the priestess for anointing the children of chiefs. It sat now in her bag, waiting for the right moment. The dancing began. The drums grew louder, more insistent. The priestess called for the children of the chiefs to come forward for blessing. Adana's children went first, receiving water on their foreheads, their wrists, their feet. They danced away laughing, dripping, blessed. "Children of Chief Okonkwo," the priestess called. Ifioma's heart stopped. No. No, my children don't need." But Chief Okonkwo was already pushing forward. "Go," he told his 7 children. "Go receive your blessing." Chukwamika looked at his mother, saw the terror, and for a moment hesitated. But the drums were loud, the crowd was watching, and he was so tired of being different. He stepped forward. His siblings followed. Ifioma lunged forward, but hands held her back. "Sister, calm yourself," someone said. "It's just a blessing." She watched, paralyzed, as the priestess raised her hands over her children. But the priestess was using oil, not water. Oil on their foreheads. Oil on their wrists. Ifioma could breathe again. Then Adana appeared. She moved through the crowd with the practiced ease of someone who belonged there, carrying her calabash, smiling her perfect smile. She approached Chukwamika just as he was turning to walk back to his mother. "Chukwamika," Adana called softly. "Your mother asked me to bring you children this special water. For extra protection. All of you come." The 7 children gathered around her, trusting, innocent. Chukwamika reached for the calabash. Across the crowd, Ifeoma's gaze landed on her son's hand extending toward the calabash. No. The scream tore from her throat like something dying. Chukwuemeka, don't touch it. Don't. She ran, shoving people aside, her wrapper coming loose, her hair wild. But she was too far. Too late. Adana's hand slipped. The calabash tilted and water arced through the air, catching the sunlight, beautiful and deadly. It splashed across all 7 children. Within the next fraction of a second, the children's skin began to shimmer, then glow with an otherworldly light. Their eyes, all 14 eyes, turned silver. The festival crowd gasped and stepped back as one. Ifeoma reached them, grabbing, clutching. No. No. Please. Oshin, please, it was an accident. Please don't take them. They're mine. They're mine. But even as she held them, she could feel them changing. Their skin was cool, too cool, like river stones. Their bodies were becoming lighter, less solid. The river began to churn. The water rose and swirled, and from its depths, Oshin emerged. The entire village fell to their knees, but Ifeoma stood, holding her children, defiant even in her devastation. The covenant is broken, Oshin said, her voice carrying across the water, across the silenced drums, across every terrified heart. They return to me now, Ifeoma. As was agreed. Please. Ifeoma sobbed. Please, I kept them safe for 10 years. 10 years. I never failed until now. Please give me another chance. You wanted children to silence mockery, Oshin said, her ancient eyes sad. You wanted them to win a war against shame. But you never wanted them simply to love them. That is why you could not keep them. The words hit Ifeoma like physical blows. Chukwuemeka, still glowing, still transforming, turned to his mother. His voice was distant, dreamy. Mama, the water is calling us home. We were always meant to return. We understand now. No, baby, no. One by one, her children pulled free from her desperate grip. One by one, they walked toward the river. They moved like sleepwalkers, their faces peaceful, almost happy. The youngest ones held hands. The oldest walked with his shoulders straight, looking ahead to something only he could see. Ifeoma followed them into the water, screaming, begging, but an invisible force held her back at waist depth. She could only watch as her 7 children walked deeper, deeper, until the water closed over their heads. The river glowed brilliant gold for one eternal moment. 7 small figures were visible beneath the surface, dancing, free, transformed. Then the light faded, the water stilled, and they were gone. Ifeoma stood in that river and made a sound no human should ever have to make. The sound of a mother losing everything at once. The sound of a soul breaking into pieces too small to ever fully reassemble. On the riverbank, Adana watched with wide, terrified eyes. She had wanted to hurt Ifeoma, yes. To remove competition, yes. But she had not expected this. She had not expected to witness something so absolute, so final, so devastating. That night, Adana couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the children's silver eyes, heard their peaceful voices saying goodbye. At midnight, something called her. She rose from her bed and walked to the river without knowing why. The next morning, they found her floating face down in the calm water, drowned, her face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The priestess spoke at her funeral. Oshin does not tolerate those who interfere with divine covenants. This is what happens when jealousy makes us weapons in the hands of forces we don't understand. Chief Okonkwo aged 20 years overnight. He moved through his compound like a ghost, unable to look at Ifeoma, unable to forgive himself for forcing the children to attend the festival. Ifeoma stopped speaking. For 3 months, she sat by the river every day from sunrise to sunset, silent, waiting, hoping. Sometimes, when the light hit the water just right, she thought she saw them. 7 small figures playing beneath the surface, laughing soundlessly, free in ways they had never been on land. One evening, they appeared clearly. All 7 of them, standing in the shallow water, smiling at her. Not sad. Not reproachful. Just smiling. Chukwamika spoke, his voice like water over stones. Mama, we're home now. We're where we were always meant to be. Don't cry for us anymore. I'm sorry, Ifeoma whispered. I'm so sorry, I couldn't give you a normal life. You gave us life, Adiz said. That was enough. They faded as the sun set, and Ifeoma finally understood. They were not suffering. They had returned to their true nature. And she, having loved them in the only way her desperate heart knew how, would carry them forever. Years later, mothers in the village tell their children the story of Ifeoma's 7 children when teaching them about desperation and its consequences. About how some agreements should never be made. About how pride and shame can make us bargain away the things we'll later realize we needed most. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the cost of desperation and the weight of impossible choices, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss stories that make you feel something real. Drop a comment below. Do you think Ifeoma deserved what happened? Was she a victim or did she bring this on herself? We read every comment. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, remember that some prices are too high, no matter how desperate we are. God bless you.